Welcome back to Inside the Lines. Happy Wednesday. We got a lot to cover today. Some early March Madness looks, giving you a little preview of what we like, who to buy low on, who to sell high, things like that. But we also have some money to be made tonight. Let's take a little look back at yesterday with John here. Not our prettiest day, but all I know is college basketball Jake is definitely back, and this is another time to buy low on him. So excited for him to come back, hitting harder today. All right, before we do that, John, let's head back to the NHL with another last name that you're really testing my limits with here.
Yeah, he's American this time, though. So we're going to go with Matthew Tkachuk. I think names are just impossible to pronounce in NHL in general.
They are.
But the T is silent. Matthew Tkachuk, we're going to go over 3.5 shots on goal here. He's minus 130 on Hard Rock. He's hit this number in 5 of his last 6 games. He had 5 shots on goal against the Red Wings the first time he played them this season. And he has 25 shots on goal in his last 4 games combined. He had a couple 9 shots on goal games in that stretch. So he's been shooting it a lot lately. We're going to try to break out of his slump here. He's playing the Red Wings, and the Red Wings also give up the 6th most shots on goal per game. So hopefully we can get 4 out of Tkachuk here.
Jake with the fun facts in the chat. Grew up with Jason Tatum. So we got a bunch of shooters here. Shoot. I like the shots on goal energy there. All right, good quick NHL play for the day. Thank you, John. Send you to the chat to answer some more questions on NHL if anyone has them. Going to head into the NBA slate. A lot of player props to get through today. So buckle up, get your pen and paper. We're going to run through this slate of games, starting with the Timberwolves, headed to the Pistons, 11.5, 12-point favorites here. We have some model value, but we like a player prop more, Steven.
Yeah, I'm going with Killian Hayes. The over is 21-14 this season. Model likes him at just over 3. His minutes have bumped up to around 28 since Cade Cunningham's injury. And his last game he had an under, but he had 3 straight games with 4 rebounds exactly.
Boom. Love to hear that. All right, let's move on here. We'll go to the Bucks laying 4, headed to Cleveland. We make it a 1-point game here, and we like Donovan Mitchell. We're going to fade him with an under.
Yeah, unfortunately, I just saw the line come down to 46.5 as the best price. So this is an act now because I think there's too much reaction to the line to his 49 points, rebound assists that he had on December 29th in a home loss to Milwaukee. The under is 41-12 at home. Even with Darius Garland out, it's 7-2 because this is such a high number for anyone who's not a lock for a double-double with 28 points and double-double. That's usually this kind of number is reserved for your Luka, Giannis, Embiid, and that kind of level player. Mitchell is not been getting a lot of rebounds, 3 or fewer rebounds in 4 of his last 5 games. Again, in all his stats, he's had notable explosions. He had like a 12-rebound game recently. He, 49-point rebounding game. So if you were just watching highlights like a fan, you would think he's been just putting up massive numbers, but they've been individual stat lines and individual games and not the overall recent trend.
I see. How about Nick asking about Jared Allen in the chat here, plus money for over 1.5 blocks?
Let me see. Probably like that. I think we have a nice over. We have him at 1.55 blocks. So yeah, especially if we have him over.
That's great.
Yeah. So at that value, we love it.
Nick S. putting in the work every day. Love to see it. All right, let's move on here. We'll head over to the Heat going to Toronto. Jimmy Butler back, had a successful first game. Might be an over-exaggeration at this total here.
Yeah, again, a point value lost in the last hour. Now the best price is 226.5. The last 3 Miami opponents have scored 90, 95, 87, and 96. Toronto put up just 96 in the last game. The average total in Miami road games is a full 13 points lower than it is at home, just 216. And the average Toronto home total is just 224 versus 238 on the road. So those splits are relevant. Both teams' defensive field goal percentages are basically around 2 percentage points better in these splits. Miami is better on the road defensively in terms of defensive 3-point and field goal percentage, and Toronto is better at home.
All right. Good stuff there. I see this next play. We're going back to a little throwback player for us. Sadiq Bey we have, and then Jake likes Jalen Suggs here as well.
Yeah, I'm going Sadiq Bey over 5.5 rebounds. I'm stealing this from Jake from a few weeks ago. Plus money, you can get plus 124. The best price is like over 4.5, but it's like minus 160. Model likes him for around 5.7 rebounds since December when so DeAndre Hunter has been out for a while, and Wes Matthews too, who's on the depth chart, they're listed as the number 1 and number 4 small forward. So there's a lot of forward minutes available. So Sadiq Bey has been getting pretty consistent 30-plus minutes. He's averaged 7 rebounds a game over his last 14 games. Since December, the over is 16-5.
Bang. Jake?
Yeah. And then I need a bounce back, so I'm going with the player who needs a bit of a bounce back. I like Jalen Suggs over 11.5. In his last game against Atlanta, he had 16 points on 6 of 13, 4 of 7 from deep. So I just like this matchup a lot for him against Atlanta. And he should get plenty of shots up. He's been getting shots up. He just has been not shooting the ball great, but I really like this matchup for him. And I know Derek said earlier that Atlanta has a lot of players on the trade block, so it wouldn't be surprising to see a couple of their players get scratched late, or if they want to keep them healthy. So it could be an even better matchup for him today.
Mm-hmm.
He's had a bad week, but he's had, he was coming off.
He was on fire before that
of his career. Yeah, 20-plus points in 5 out of 9 games.
We have any thoughts here on Clint Capella going over 9.5 rebounds and assists?
He's been dead to me. He's
on the S list.
Yeah, he's on the S list. I had a couple of his double doubles, and then his minutes are just game dependent, and he's been
projection wise, yes. Personally,
projection wise, yes. But if you look at his game log, there's a couple games where they just sat him majority of the game. He was getting some 30-minute games earlier. And then recently it's 20 to 25 minutes. So that's what would scare me if they're struggling against Orlando. Maybe they go small. But I think
is there any value in going for the assists or just going straight rebound number? I don't know if it's worth it.
It's assists is usually at a half of assists. So if he gets 1, it's value. So it's probably his rebound, 8.5 is rebounds, assists, 9.5, something like that.
Especially the juices.
How about, going back to the other game here, just a question in the chat about Jared Allen rebounds, not his blocks. I don't know if we saw that number.
I think we do. Let me find the game.
Up there, second game.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're thinking Brooklyn. I saw that.
I know. It's my bird brain to get imprinted. Remember, we have him projected for 12.4 rebounds. So the line is, you have to tell me.
2.5 or 11. If it's 11.5, you get value. I don't know, but you can get it at.
If you want me to check, I have
for that.
Jared Allen. Let's see. Maybe Cleveland's one of the first games. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it is. I can look for that quick while we move on here. Let's head over to the Rockets going to the Knicks. Dylan Brooks, we like in this spot.
Yeah, we projected for 12.5 points, and it's pretty low juice here, -103. It's actually tipped at the -108. So again, probably an act now if you want to save every cent. Since last season in Memphis, he's had a higher road average, 15 points per game, with a 33 and 21 over record than at home, where he's averaged under 13 points. His 2 overs past 2 games since returning. He missed around 2.5 weeks. He had 2 overs. But the biggest thing for me was he seems to do well at MSG. His last 3 games, obviously, they were with Memphis, but he scored 27, 23, and 23. And he would pretty consistent 50% shooter, 9 for 18 type game. So I don't know if he'll get that kind of volume, but he obviously likes the atmosphere at MSG.
Yeah, I was looking to see if he played there in college, because I know there's a bunch of tournament stuff, but I didn't see. I think Oregon played the year after he left, so it was interesting to see if he dropped by 20, 25 points, but I think they played the year after. But players that usually really love it playing in MSG really hate it. There's no really in between, so he looks like he's one that really likes playing in MSG. So I like this play.
Jared Allen is 11.5 with on -130 on the over, so we would like that. You can get +108 over 12.5. Which
I think one bet was -120 on the over. I put it in the chat. Yeah, so there's
some new sports book with a Dabble. I don't know. I've never heard of them.
Dabble, I think it's kind of like a Prize Picks kind of thing.
Yeah. So that's the best price.
All right, I'm going to move us over here. We have 2 more games to get through that we have value in. Hornets going to New Orleans. 2 props here that we like.
Yeah, I like Herb Jones over 8.5. The model has a 9.5 points. He's averaged just 9.2 his last 15 games, which is obviously over, but 11.6 in his last 8. So he went through a little lull that's been offset in the last 2 weeks. Over is on an 8-1 streak. I am concerned with if there's a blowout. I'm hoping that the star Zion, Ingram, McCollum would sit and Herb would keep playing, especially if Trey is injured or not 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then another player I like to bounce back, Brandon Ingram. It was interesting when you said the Hornets going to New Orleans. It threw me back a little flashback right there, their old team. But another player with a bounce back, Brandon Ingram, over 21.5 points, rebounds, and assists. A lot of places this has gone up to 22.5, but at Pico you can still get minus 125. So I try to get 21.5 before it moves. I know a lot of people are on this play. Ingram shoots the ball at like a 42% clip from deep at home compared to like 28 on the road. So he likes playing at home a lot better. He's due for a big game. He kind of really struggled towards the end of that last road trip. Now they're back at home. Good matchup against the Hornets. He averages 21 points, 5 rebounds. So if he just hits his average, he should easily go over, but it's definitely gone down due to his recent struggles. But I like this play. I'd buy low right here.
A lot of questions in the chat about this game too. Jones under 3.5 rebounds. I believe we have him right at 3.5 rebounds. And then McCollum PRA. I don't know what the exact PRA line is.
I could check.
We like over. I mean, the line is 26.5, I think, on one feed, and we have him at 28.5. He shoots very well at home, typically. But I had an over a few weeks ago, but he shot too well, and they killed the team. And he played like 23 minutes, so that kind of annoyed me.
Yeah. All right. I see a ton of questions in the chat, which I love. Steven, I'm going to let you answer those while we move on to college basketball here, since we're running out of some time. We're going to go through a little preview here, okay? Jake's cooked up the numbers, college basketball king himself. We're going to go through a little bit of what to be expecting, who to buy high, who to sell high, buy low on. All right, but before we do that, let's look at the top dogs here, I guess, in the public side, a little bit in our eye as well. We'll start with UConn. They're playing great, but it's just kind of scary to go for a back-to-back national champion, right?
Yeah, the last back-to-back championship was my Gators in 04 and 05 with or that was the 04-05 recruiting class. It was 06-07 Gators with Joe Kim and Al Horford and that great team. So it hasn't been done in over 15 years. So it's so hard to go back-to-back. But this UConn team, they have by far the best. They're like the LA Dodgers and our baseball center, where it's kind of scary because we have them at such good championship odds, even though they're by far the best team. So you want to knock that down a little, but they've been playing great. They have been without Donovan Clingan, who is a game time decision for tonight. He's a 7'2" center, should block everything, and he was looking improved on the offensive side. But it's so scary to go bet on a team, go back to back. But maybe you could bet on them now and hedge it later. So I don't mind that kind of play. Houston.
There's also, Jake, what do you think of maybe if you're scared about winning it all, maybe there's value on like the Final Four
to make the Final Four. I don't mind that as well. I'm sure there's value because we have them at 8.5% value just to win the championship. So I'm sure there's plenty of value just to make the Final Four.
And wouldn't you say that the fact that that it's so hard to repeat is probably the only reason why the odds are as juiced up as they are, or as high as they are? That if they hadn't won last year, they'd probably be at like
plus 800. Yeah. I think so. That's definitely factoring into that. And Stephon Castle's starting to play better. I mean, they're just a good overall sound team. They don't have like a dominant player, but they're just all around very good. Clingan could be that dominant player if he's healthy, but we'll see. Houston, they're very scary. They've started off 0-2, and they've lost 2 straight in the Big 12 after starting off 14-0. But you don't want to play Kelvin Sampson when it comes to March. They're just such a great defensive team, but they don't have any stars. Some of those other teams have had really good guards. They have decent guards. LJ Cryer has been really good, but he's been struggling lately. they're very scary. We have some good value on them. I don't like it. And then Alabama, they were the first team with 5 losses like before January to be in the Ken Palm top 5. They were 8-5 in the top 5 just because their metrics were so good. They played all these tough teams like Purdue. A lot of those games were close, and they put up really good stats in those games, which all the models love. So it's very interesting when Ken Palm loves a team. We usually love that team as well, so they're a team with plenty of value.
Yeah. They lost Brandon Miller, number 2 pick, but they're actually better across the board. I mean, not necessarily defensive field goal percentage wise, but their shooting numbers are so much better.
Yeah, sometimes these teams like Bama, I know we'll talk about Auburn a little, they're better without the Brandon Miller, Jabari Smith, because you don't have to focus on one player. And sometimes these players come March, they feel like they have to carry the team on their back, and they want to show out for the draft boards.
Especially when Brandon Miller shoots on 10% in those
games.
All right, so either Houston or Bama are these teams that like we think will be playing a lot better by March. Maybe you want to look at buying in on a future. You'll probably have better value now than later in the season.
Yeah, probably have better value. I'd say Houston, you could probably get better value in a little just because they're going through a tough gauntlet. They're not in the AAC where they're going to win every game. They're in the Big 12. Alabama, I would look at their schedule and find out when they're going to get hot, when they're going to play the tough teams, and then maybe buy low there. But right now, all these teams have good value. So maybe bet on them all to make the Final Four.
All right. Well, let's talk about a few teams quickly that we do not think are worth spending money on here. I'll let you rip through these.
What's interesting is 3 of these 4 teams lost yesterday. South Carolina, they're projected an 8 seed in Jerry Palm's bracket. They're 14-4, but they don't have any great wins this season. I would not be shocked if they hit a bit of a struggle in the SEC play and they don't make the tournament at all. St. John's, they're just not a cohesive team. They have a bunch of transfers. They're very talented. You don't want to bet against Patino, especially come March, but they just don't have like any go-to player that's very consistent. They have Joel Soriano, but usually a big who, unless he could really just dominate, well, it's going to be hard to win in March with that. Their guard play is very inconsistent. Wisconsin lost on the road yesterday to Penn State, which is interesting because we did have Penn State value on Penn State, so that was good in our model. So it's looking good that we were fading Wisconsin. But they're very old. They're an older team. They're a well-coached team, but sometimes they have defensive lapses. This Penn State team is okay, but they scored 85 points against them yesterday, or 75 points. They scored a lot of points against them yesterday, and not very characteristic. And then Memphis is talented, but they're a team that really just scares me. I guess they have a bunch of transfers. Penny Hardaway's teams haven't done well in the tournament, so the model doesn't love them. A lot of their advanced metrics aren't that great, especially they have close wins where they allowed 101 points to a not great team last week. They barely beat Tulsa. So it's these metrics are pushing them back a bit in our model.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. There's some teams that like I feel like statistically the model loves, but then there's a whole different factor to take into it, like teams like Alabama. Anyway, let's move on to teams that we think are a little underrated, might be sneakier teams come March. A team like Creighton, who has a lot of veterans when they're all healthy, they could be a great March team to look out for.
Yeah, Creighton, their team, if they get hot, you don't want to buy immediately. They're starting to get hot right now. They struggled earlier in December. They lost 3 or 4, but they have Kalkbrenner, they have Trey Alexander, they have Shireman. They have really, really good veterans, but they're not deep. They've gone to a 6-man rotation lately, and they're a team that could struggle if some of these players get into foul trouble. And Auburn, we're just talking about Jabari Smith not being there. They don't have a go-to guy. They're not as talented. Aiden Holloway is a really good freshman, but they have 7 players averaging 7+ points. So they spread the wealth very well. Janai Broom's very good, but he's not a stud. So he's not like a player you're going to give the ball to every play. So teams can't really zone in on one player. And they did lose one of their best players to Ole Miss, but Alan Flanagan, but they're very well rounded this year. It's just the kind of teams that Bruce Pearl wins with.
This sounds like Packers receiving core to me.
Yeah,
like a lot of just solid guys, and you can't really zone in on one.
No studs, a lot of solid guys.
It seems to me in college basketball, no one can shoot, and so Creighton's 2-point percentage differential is plus 16 percentage points this year, and they out-rebound teams by 8. So when people start like chucking and missing like they do in college basketball and March Madness, this is the team that's going to thrive.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on to the biggest part of the day. Picking our Cinderella team. We've honed it down to 2 teams here. If I can, all right, my screen's frozen.
I really like this Indiana State team. I really like this Princeton team. Indiana State, I've been saying they remind me a lot of the Loyola Chicago teams. Robbie Avila is a big guy who's kind of like a college light version of Jokic. Just a big guy, really advanced feel for the game, passes the ball very well, can make a couple 3-pointers. He's like the Carter Krutwig, if you remember that Loyola Chicago team. He just dominated.
You remember Jacob.
Yeah, I know. And then from Princeton, lost the Ivy League Player of the Year from last year, but they're just well-oiled, as Mackenzie wrote down. They just know how to win. They run great offensive sets. They're an Ivy League team. They're smart. They're just very smart, well-trained. They have Alec Pierce's brother, Caden Pierce. He's 6'5", 6'6", but he averages 10 rebounds this season. They're just solid all around. And no matter what, I always bet on Ivy League team to upset the team in the first round. And it's looking like Princeton is going to represent the Ivy League this year.
One thing about Indiana State is obviously they haven't played a tough schedule, but they shoot over 60% from 2 and over 40% from 3. And in 2 of the higher, tougher matchups, they did, even though they got killed, they did shoot 63% from 2 and 38% from 3 against Bama. And they shot 40% from 3 against Michigan State. So Indiana State did. So hopefully Indiana State can.
One of those games, Avila, I talked about, was out.
Yeah, they're vulnerable on the boards against the Power 5 bigger teams.
Yeah, but I think Avila was out for the Alabama game, I want to say, and they were close at one point in that game. And he's the big 6'10" center, so that definitely hurt them on the boards. So I was looking at that game too, which makes me like them even more because they're missing their best player.
All right. So are we picking today, or are we do we want to go Princeton? Do we want to go Larry Bird? What are we thinking here?
I think we got to go with Indiana. If it was Penn, it'd be a different story, but it's Princeton. I know we'd have to pick Penn if it was Penn for Steven, but not.
Yeah, no, when it comes to Ivy League, I cheer for most Ivy League teams. It's sort of depending on the circumstance.
Is there any Ivy League team you hate? Just from what that would
I hate Princeton. I despise Princeton. They were the rival. They were the great team. So in any other situation, I don't cheer for them. But if it's the NCAA tournament, I will, accept that they're our representative.
Mm-hmm. I guess one team doing well elevates your rival, so it is good. It helps you get better. You recruit better. It helps players know that you can succeed at Ivy League schools. So it does well for the conference when one team does well.
Yeah.
I don't know. I say we go Indiana State. We'll get on it before all the experts start to get on it, which Jake mentioned. Eventually they will, but we will be so far into this team and so invested already that people are going to be like, damn, Inside the Lines was on that.
Let's get out our Larry Bird throwback jerseys for the team.
We do. It is so when we get close to the actual tournament, we're filling out our bracket. Our bracket does really well, and we power the Sportsline bracket that's on our CBS game. But the 12 seed is notorious for their upset, 12-5 upsets. And in Jerry Palm's bracket, Indiana State and Princeton are both projected 12 seeds. And we have Indiana State as, one of the better teams in the bracket, not just better, good for a 12 seed. And we have Princeton at nearly right on an average team in the bracket and not a bottom quarter. So we agree with Palm that these 2 teams are ripe for first round upset wins.
Mm-hmm. All right, we are definitely way over time here, but I'm going to show you guys Jake's college basketball props for today. Comeback Jake situation. Take a screenshot of this because these are all solid plays that you're going to want to get on. But we are going to head out after that. So lots to think on here. Pick your Cinderella team. Buy high, buy low, sell high. Wow, I really can't get that right. All right, tomorrow we're going to start going over divisional round props, spread it out a little bit like we did last week so we can really dive into each game. So certainly be prepared with your questions for the weekend games, and we'll have some props for you guys as well. So good luck with your bets tonight, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.